What is going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Wednesday Football Talk here with Ben Hall, my guy Trey Watson. In today's episode, we'll be discussing a lot. The college football playoff just came out last night. A lot of stuff is going on. The NFL playoff picture is starting to really come along. Some teams are really starting to get eliminated now, and some teams are really starting to go on a run where we weren't really expecting them to make the playoffs. So there's definitely going to be some good football down the road. And, yeah, I'm very excited. How you doing today, Trey?
Doing good, man. Like you said, there's a lot going on. College football playoff rankings are coming out, so that kind of shifts everyone's focus a little bit. And COVID's still messing them with a lot of the games going on right now. Some teams are just getting back to playing. Some teams are, getting forced to take some breaks. We'll see what happens with the Thursday night football game. As of right now, it's on, but that could be an issue. Like you said, though, definitely in primetime football action.
Actually, just a few minutes ago, the Ravens were pushed to Sunday.
Yeah, see, look, there you go.
Yeah, so and who knows? Probably Sunday that game could get pushed to Tuesday or Wednesday. You never really know. But for our first game, the Cardinals Seahawks, that was Thursday night football. It was a great game, as everybody expected. The Cardinals, I think, were dealing with a few injuries. Kyler Murray early in the game hurt his shoulder, and I think that bothered him throughout the game. But for the Seahawks, their defense stepped up in a surprising way. Like I said, I think some of that might be because of Kyler Murray's injury. But at the end of the day, they played pretty well, and they stopped a good Cardinals offense. And for the Seahawks, Carlos Hyde really stepped up. He played really physical. He's always been a physical back, but he really stepped up when they needed him to against the Cardinals defense. DK and Lockett were both relatively around the same spot. I think they both had 60-some yards. Or I think they both, like 60 to 50 yards each and a touchdown, which usually one of them will have 200 and the other will have 30. So a little bit surprising there. But like I said, Kyler was banged up and the Cardinals couldn't get the win. But this was a huge win for the Seahawks in that tough division.
Yeah, man, the Seahawks needed that one to avoid going, 0-2 in that division contest with them, and that would have hurt them just in terms of playoff spots. So it was a big win for them to stay in the running with that division, with the Rams playing well, and they were able to get a win on Monday. So that keeps that division race extremely tight. Seahawks did enough, and like you said, Carlos Hyde played well. They were able to get, some pass rush, which helped them a lot. And, if they can keep making enough plays on defense moving forward, Russ should keep them in a position to win.
For our next game, the Ravens-Titans, as a Ravens fan, all Ravens fans should know this is an embarrassment. A team comes out and beats you last year in the playoff, and, you're expecting to come out and be ready to play, and it just looks like the Ravens have all year. They play 2 hard quarters, and then the other 2, it's, they just give the game away. Early on, the Titans came out of the gate, stopped the Ravens, and scored a touchdown. And after that, the Ravens really played well until the fourth quarter when the Titans' offense really started to dominate the Ravens' defense. But once again, the Ravens' offense, there's plays where they figure it out, and it just seems like they go away from what they have. I feel like they try to get too cute with the play calls. They'll have 2nd and 1, and they'll try to run a way more diverse play than they need to when they could just stuff it up the middle. They'll try to run a special option or something like that, and they'll turn it to a third and even longer, which really kills them. But like I said, the Ravens defense, they were without 2 of their defensive linemen, Calais Campbell and Brandon Williams, which definitely hurt. But the Titans, just really took advantage, and Derrick Henry came on along late, and Ryan Tannehill really played well in the fourth quarter, and I think that's what won them the game.
Yeah, man, I think I said last week, when we were looking at the predictions that Calais Campbell and Brandon Williams, their nose tackle being out could be the difference. And that ended up being the case. They just weren't able to do enough. Their offense still hasn't looked impressive, like we want to see from them. And the Titans did what they needed to do. Derrick Henry played strong, throughout the game and was able to put the finishing touches on it at the end.
So I also forgot to mention Des Bryant actually got in. He made some nice catches, and it seemed like, he was just the only player on their offense playing with some excitement. He's fired up. I think it's known that he's fired up to get on the field. And I think the Ravens, if they play on Sunday or whenever their next game is, really need to get him involved more, because you need a fiery guy like that on an offense that's really not producing the way they should be. For our next game, the Eagles-Browns, the Browns actually caught the Ravens now in a division and are ahead of them. They're really winning games, but their offense is just I think Nick Chubb has really gave them something they needed. They gave him that spark because he rushed for 100 yards this weekend, and Baker threw for I think about 200, but it just doesn't seem like their passing game is just going to win them any games. Their defense played well, and like I said, I think the Eagles lost this game more than the Browns won it. The one pick six by Carson Wentz was horrible, and on the Browns passing game, Jarvis Landry had 2 targets. And I guess we're seeing that because Odell went down. But the best wide receiver now on that receiving core should definitely be getting more than 2 targets. Now, I don't know if it's because he's not getting open or what. But no matter what, Jarvis Landry, he's had an up and down year. But I think it might start to get to his head a little bit if you don't give him at least more targets. So we'll see down the stretch. But like I said, the Browns are the second team in the AFC North, and they're looking like they're going to be making the playoffs.
Yeah, man, it's really interesting how the Browns season has played out, man. They've kind of been underwhelming most of the year besides the Cowboys comeback. But, they find themselves in a really good position overall. Their defense is playing strong. Myles Garrett is a beast, and he didn't even play, last week because of, COVID issues, and he might not play again, I don't think. But they're finding a way to win, man, even with the offense not necessarily looking that great. They're doing enough with the running game between Chubb and Hunt to get it done, and we'll see if they can keep that up, versus the big teams heading into the end of the season and then in the playoffs. But they're definitely in a better position than I think anyone really expected going into the year.
Yeah, definitely. For our next game, the Saints-Falcons, I'll admit I was 100% wrong about Taysom Hill. When I found out that he was starting over Jameis, I was kind of baffled. I just couldn't believe it. I thought Jameis was a much better quarterback, but Taysom Hill came out. He did what he always does, and he actually passed way better than I thought he would. I think he had 220-some passing yards, which is insane to me. I couldn't believe that, but he played well. The Falcons' offense just struggled horribly, and I think that shows what happens when Julio Jones gets hurt because I think he got hurt in the game. But Todd Gurley couldn't get going. Like I said, the Falcons' offense as a whole just couldn't get going, and Taysom Hill and that Saints offense played great. And another big thing, I think, which helps the Saints is Michael Thomas. He had 100-plus receiving yards. And all year we've kind of been waiting for Michael Thomas to have that game. And for Saints fans, I think it's very hopeful that he can continue to do that for the rest of the year.
Yeah, man, it was definitely a good sign. Taysom Hill was smart in getting Michael Thomas a lot of targets. When you're, fresh starting and the passing game really isn't your forte, it's smart to go after your number one guy. He did that. They took advantage, and they definitely made a lot of plays, and the offense looked solid. He was a threat running the ball and throwing, as we kind of knew he would be. And they did what they needed to do. Their defense has been playing extremely well the second half of the season after a slow start, and the Saints look like they're in prime position to be competing deep into the playoffs.
For our next game, the Bengals versus Washington football team, it was really sad to see Joe Burrow go down. We're hoping for a speedy recovery. But for the Bengals, I just feel like they did that to him. They're kind of forcing him with that terrible offensive line and just, he's great. Probably would have been rookie of the year, I think, if he continued the year. Herbert's very close to him, and now I think Herbert's going to win it. But it was just sad to see, all year I think the Bengals have been using Burrow a little too much, which you can't really say. He's their number one pick, and they're expected to use him. But I think looking to the future would be much smarter to not try to force him out there. But Tyler Boyd had a huge day for the Bengals. They didn't run the ball at all, which is sad. Ryan Finley, their backup quarterback, led them in rushing yards, which is terrible. But for the football team, a big day for Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson, which is huge for them. And moving down the stretch, I think if the Washington football team wins on Thanksgiving, I think they're looking at they're in the playoffs, which is pretty incredible. But like I said, the Washington football team battled. They played well. And, Chase Young played well as well to hit on Joe Burrow early in the game at the goal line, which was incredible. But like I said, Washington football team has a shot to make the playoffs, which is just insane.
Yeah, man, I think I kind of agree with you on the Joe Burrow thing. Not to say that they were asking for it, but they didn't really invest too much in the protection, and it was an issue all year. And, as many hits as he had taken, any one of those could have been what ended up happening. And it's extremely unfortunate because he was playing really well, and the direction of their franchise with him at the helm is different than it's been for a while now. So hopefully he recovers well and they get in a position to, start competing. Investing in that O-line will be a big step, in that for them, though. And like you said, man, I think the Redskins all year, with the way that their division has been, they've been, just one complete game away from honestly leading that division. And like you said, things could change quickly. They get another win. I think the winner of that division, all they really have to do is reach like 7-9. 8-8 probably won't even happen for any of those teams. But 7-9 could easily take it, and that's a playoff spot. I think, Washington's defense playing well, and then them finding, just some kind of consistent offense, they could easily take that.
Yeah, definitely. For our next game, the Panthers Lions. It was great to see PJ Walker. He got his first career win, I think, in his first career start, which is pretty crazy. He's definitely got a lot of potential. And now I heard Teddy Bridgewater will be coming back. And I'm guessing he'll be the starter. But as I said, PJ Walker's been playing good, and he's shown that he can make some passes that is not expected out of him. But Mike Davis played pretty well. A big day for DJ Moore, and I think PJ Walker showed confidence in DJ Moore, which is needed on that offense. It really shows a spark when you get DJ Moore, who's been their best. Hasn't been their best receiver this year, but before getting Robbie Anderson had been their best receiver. It really just shows, if you get him involved, what that offense can do. Because Robbie Anderson had a little bit of a down game, but if Robbie Anderson is being covered by the number one, DJ Moore will be getting open with the number two on him. But AP didn't play too well for the Lions. Their rushing game was kind of like I said earlier with the Bengals. Their rushing game was kind of like the Bengals was, where they really didn't have any rushing yards. But the Lions at one point this year, they traded for Everson Griffin, and it was like they thought they had a playoff spot, but losing a game by 20 to the Panthers just can't happen if you're looking to get into the playoffs, especially scoring 0 points. It definitely hurts with Galladay being out, but like I said, you can't score 0 points and expect to get in the playoffs. But another good sign for Maryland fans, Jermaine Carter playing linebacker for the Panthers now I think will be the starting linebacker, and he played really well, had a bunch of tackles and made some plays. So overall, I think this was a huge day for the Panthers.
Yeah, man, I think they did everything they needed to do. And PJ Walker kind of proved that he's good enough to play quarterback in the NFL, which I think people expected after they saw how he played in the XFL and how he really just dominated everyone. But it was good to see him take advantage of that opportunity. And like you said, they just played well all around. I think Jermaine took advantage of his opportunity with someone being out. He played well and showed that he can be a starter in that defense. But the Panthers definitely have two, number one caliber receivers in DJ Moore and, Robbie Anderson. So if they get the most out of them, and Curtis Samuel has been pretty lethal from the slot and also like third down running back type, they've got weapons. And then eventually, Christian McCaffrey will come back, whether that's this year or whether they hold him out until next year and see if they can get going. Either way, their offense has weapons, and they're in a good spot, there.
For our next game, the Steelers-Jaguars game, the Jaguars dominated, which was expected. Early, the Jaguars went up by a field goal, and there was, I guess, with some hope. But after that, the Steelers really took over. But I think the big difference in this game was Deontay Johnson on offense for the Steelers, who's been playing in the past 2 weeks, has been playing like one of the best receivers in the NFL. I think he's had 100-plus receiving yards both weeks. And I think Ben Roethlisberger is really starting to take advantage of him being a third wide receiver on the team. Juju and Chase Claypool both, taking the top cornerbacks, and then you got Deontay Johnson as your third guy, and he's really taking advantage of it. But for the Steelers on defense, two huge, two big players, Trey Edmonds and Minka Fitzpatrick, both had 2 picks each, which is incredible. Like we said at the beginning of the year, and we've said through this, the Steelers defense is what is kind of their heart and what will win them games, and it continues to. And if their offense is playing the way it is, they're probably one of the best teams in the NFL, if not the best. And like I said last week, they got the best coach in the NFL. So I'll be excited to see what they can do down the road. They beat top teams, and they showed me I was wrong a lot. But like I said, we'll see. We'll see if they play on Sunday. I don't want to be negative, but I just don't see a game happening on Sunday. You know, the NFL has been trying to force games in, so there's a real possibility, but I just don't see them playing on Sunday, but we'll see.
Yeah, man, I think, the Steelers have definitely, going 10-0. And like you said, they have played some big games. There have been some easy ones too. But, I mean, at the end of the day, the NFL is the NFL. So they're a really well-rounded team. At receiver-wise, they really have three number one caliber guys between Claypool and Johnson, who have emerged this year, and then Juju. I think everyone kind of expected Juju to really take over once AB left, and he had kind of a down year this past year. But, when you have that many weapons, no one guy is really going to get the bulk of the targets, and they also have a solid running game with James Conner. So they've got a really balanced offense. They have guys who do different things, and that bodes well for them. And obviously they have a really experienced quarterback. And then defensive-wise, they're just strong at all three levels. The secondary is playing as good as any in the league right now. And when you have two guys in the back end who can make plays in the run and the pass game, it's just hard to beat. They definitely have some big games coming up. I know the Bills are one of them. That'll be a good measure going in the playoffs. But I mean, if they end up managing to go 16-0 with this kind of schedule, and the momentum that they'll have, from that, it's going to be hard to see them being beat in the playoffs.
And as you said with Juju Smith-Schuster, I think Baltimore is kind of seeing what the Steelers did with Juju. Juju was pushed to be a number one wide receiver, which he's got the talent to be, I think a little early in his career, which was tough for him, which kind of hurt him. So this year with Hollywood Brown for the Ravens, it's like now he's being forced to be the number one wide receiver, and he's a slot guy. And it's really just, I mean, Lamar's missed some throws and he's got open, but in a lot of games, he's been covered relatively well. So it's kind of tough, so early on in your career being pushed. And it's different for the Steelers because they got a lot of weapons, whereas the Ravens, Hollywood's got to be the number one. They got Dez, as I said, but Dez hasn't played a game in 3 years. Willie Snead, who's good, but he's just not a number one wide receiver. And like I said, I think the Steelers with Juju Smith, the Ravens are seeing the same thing with Hollywood. But for our next game, the Patriots Texans, this was a good game. And I think after the Patriots beat the Ravens, a lot thought more high of the Patriots. But I think it's just the Ravens not being good. But Cam, he was up and down passing, but yardage-wise, he had his best game of the year. He threw for 330 yards, I think, which is pretty crazy. Deshaun Watson played great, as usual. But it was the big thing with the Patriots, I think, when they win games, their running game is going. And Damian Harris had his touchdown early, and it looked like their run game was going to get going. But after that, they could never really get it going, and that really killed them. But for the Patriots on offense, Damiere Byrd, I think is how you pronounce his name, he had a huge day, and that was big for Cam Newton. But they couldn't pull off the win, and this was a huge win for the Texans, who have really been fighting to get some wins this year.
Yeah, man, I think it was an interesting game just in that, it's two teams who have struggled in some areas, but the game was extremely competitive both ways. Like you said, there were some big downfield passes for the Patriots, which they had been really lacking a majority of this season, spare a game or, here or there. But with no, really top wide receiver threats, I don't think it's – and Cam, coming off of injuries and all those kind of things, I don't think anyone expected the Patriots to be a downfield passing team. But you mentioned Damiere Byrd, and he's played really well this season, in the most action he's really seen in his career. And, they made the most out of it. I expect more out of N'Keal Harry just because, he's got the skill set. He's big. He's fast. He should, he looks like a number one wide receiver. And, hopefully they can get more out of him, as his career goes on. But the Texans did what they needed to do, man. They've struggled all year long, but Deshaun Watson has kind of just been, the guy that he's always been. He finds a way to do things, and he's kept them in games that they probably wouldn't have been in otherwise. And this one he was able to, finish out, especially running over Devin McCourty early in the game. They paid him a lot of money. I don't know if they paid him to do that, but when your quarterback does that, man, you gotta step up your game because that's just next level.
Oh yeah, for sure. For our next game, the Dolphins Broncos, this game was probably the surprise of the week, I guess. I really did not see the Dolphins losing this game at any point. And I think Tua struggled. So Fitzpatrick got put in and played all right. But yeah, I think the big thing was Tua struggling. He's a rookie quarterback. It's expected. But he had some bad struggles, and that really hurt him. For the Broncos, Tim Patrick had a huge day, which was Tim Patrick is an up and down receiver. I think he's very underrated just because he doesn't get looked at as much because he's been behind some really good receivers there. But Devontae Parker, I think for the Dolphins, needs to get the ball a little bit more. He's definitely the best receiver on their team, but some other guys have been playing well, like Preston Williams and Grant. But for the Broncos, Melvin Gordon has been up and down this year, just with some fumbles. And he had a really good game. Him and Phillip Lindsay both have played well, besides for the fumble late that almost cost them the game. But it was a good win for the Broncos, and it was kind of surprising to see them take down the Dolphins, especially with where the Dolphins are at right now.
Yeah, man, it was a big letdown for the Dolphins just because, they had been playing so well for so long. And I think this one, maybe they overlooked Denver just because Denver hadn't been playing too well this year. But this was one they would really like to have back just because it would have set them up in such a better position, especially because it's an AFC game for this playoff push going late. But they're still in a solid position regardless. They have to figure out, what they're going to do on offense, whether they're going to keep sticking with Tua. You expect a young quarterback to have his struggles here and there, but it just came at an unfortunate time because that would have been a nice game for them to have going into the back stretch of the season where they have to play those division opponents again, and those are wins they really need.
So for our next game, the Chargers-Jets, once again, we see Justin Herbert play exceptionally well. And like I said earlier, I think now he's starting to take off as the offensive rookie of the year just because, with Burrow going out, even with Burrow healthy, I think we could have still saw Herbert winning, and a lot of people have that. But now definitely I think Herbert will be winning offensive rookie of the year. But it was big for him to connect with Keenan Allen a ton. 16 catches, 145 yards, and a touchdown. And I was watching the film on that touchdown pass. It was incredible. Herbert rolled out to the left. The defender's back was turned, and Herbert fitted in on the run to the left. And it was such a good throw. And I think he's shown he's the future for the Chargers. And it was good to see him. It was expected, but it was good to see him finally get the win against the Jets, which was needed for them because if they would have lost to the Jets, I think we could be seeing Anthony Lynn go. But for the Jets, I think there were a few signs of hope. Denzel Mims came in, the rookie they drafted in the second round from Baylor. He had 3 catches for 71 yards, which was, I guess, a sign of hope for them. He caught a few catches for 20 yards, which is big. But like I said, I think the big thing here was just Herbert played exceptionally well, and the Jets are not as good as the Chargers actually are.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure, man. I think the Chargers, this year's been tough. So many close losses, and you can look at coaching maybe because they had some teams come back on them, but at the end of the day, they've been in every game they've played, and with a young quarterback who's showing a lot of really bright signs, and they have a really solid offense even with the injuries they've had at running back. The future looks bright for Herbert and for that team. Eventually they'll get Derwin James back, and that'll be huge for their defense. He's a leader there and makes a lot of impactful plays. But I agree, Herbert's looking like, he's going to run off with Rookie of the Year now that things have happened, and they have their quarterback of the future, which is big. And whether or not Anthony Lynn keeps his job, Herbert is going to be good for them, whoever they have there.
Yeah, and personally, I'm actually a fan of Anthony Lynn. I think he's done well there. This year's tough in a lot of ways. Like you said, they've had some injuries, a lot of stuff. And I think Anthony Lynn, a lot of people have bashed him for some close losses, but let's be real. I don't think the Chargers right now are a team who's going to win a lot of games in the playoffs. You got to give a team time, and they're showing some signs of success in a lot of areas. They played the Raiders they were this close away to winning that Raiders game. The jump ball at the end of the game, just barely dropped it. And the Raiders, who have beat the Chiefs and competed with the Chiefs on Sunday. So like I said, I think Anthony Lynn's a good coach, and I think they should definitely let him stick around for a little while longer.
For sure.
For our next game, the Packers-Colts game, this was insane. The Packers scored 28 points in the first half and scored 3 in the second half, which is not expected out of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL to this day. And, he scores 28 points in the first half. And I guess the Colts kind of figured it out a little bit in the second half to hold them to 3 points. But, the Colts came back and won. Phillip Rivers played one of his best games of the year in a needed game. He played pretty well, and I think him finding getting Michael Pittman involved is needed for them. Frank Wright, the head coach of the Colts, trusted Jonathan Taylor. He's had some fumble issues and some issues earlier this year, and I think we've seen Wright kind of not trust him as much, but Frank Wright trusted him, and Taylor played a great game, and that was needed. And for the Colts on defense, Julian Blackmon is definitely playing like the defensive rookie of the year. He forced a fumble at the end of the game against Valdez-Scantling, who Valdez-Scantling actually played pretty well, and I read somewhere he was receiving death threats and stuff after the game, which is just insane. A player in the NFL is receiving death threats for a fumble. Meanwhile, these people who are on social media bashing them could never do that, could never catch an NFL ball in their life. But like I said, for the Colts, Julian Blackmon really has meant everything to that team, and he shows it. And he's one of the main reasons, him and the rest of the defense are the main reason the Colts are in the hunt for the playoffs right now.
Yeah, man, I think, the big thing, obviously early on in the year, that defense was tops in scoring defense, and they've tailored off in that aspect, but they're just extremely opportunistic, man. They got a lot of guys who make plays on the ball. Blackmon, Darius Leonard. They've got a strong D-line. They just, at all three levels, they're just really sound. They've got young guys making a lot of plays, and they've really carried that team. I agree Blackmon should definitely be top for Rookie of the Year defensive-wise right now. I can't think of anyone else who's consistently made as many impactful plays. But it was definitely interesting to see the Packers be up and down offensively. They've been playing so well and played really well, in that first half. But, obviously the Colts made some adjustments and did what they needed to do. The Colts are putting themselves in a really good spot leading that division, coming into some tight games that they'll have and see if they can pull it out.
So for our next game, the Cowboys Vikings, this was another game, as I said earlier, there was another surprise, but this one was a bit of a surprise. But the Vikings played pretty well on offense. Late in the game, they couldn't get some scores when they needed to, which would have won them the game. But for the Cowboys, I think the win, I think they won this game just because of Ezekiel Elliott getting involved more. In the previous weeks, he's been very, very quiet. He's even had some fumbles, which we don't usually see out of him. And on Sunday, he played well, and I think that really helped them get the win because Andy Dalton actually played better, and I think that shows what what the Cowboys passing game can do if Ezekiel Elliott's playing well. I think this game also showed that the Cowboys, to win games, are going to have to get Amari Cooper involved. Cooper is was one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, and I think if Dak was still healthy, he still would be. But it's definitely hurt him with Andy Dalton taking over. But like I said, it was a good game for the Cowboys. Very unexpected win, and the Vikings now are starting, like I said last week, they're pushing, and kind of actually making a chance for themselves to get in the playoffs. But this loss, I think, definitely is going to take them out.
Yeah, man, that one hurts. I don't think anyone saw them losing to the Cowboys coming in the way both have played, this year. But the Cowboys did what they needed to do, man. And for once, got the passing game back going. Andy Dalton came back in after the concussion and the COVID issues, which hurt him, which, everyone knew he's been a solid quarterback his whole career. And with those weapons in the passing game, you should be able to get something done. Obviously, their O-line has had, all types of injury problems and stuff like that. But those weapons are undeniable. And like you said, Zeke getting involved, helps because, his whole career, he's been one of the best running backs in the league and has just had a down year this year. But I definitely expected the Vikings to play better. I thought they would run, right through that defense, which has been arguably the worst in the NFL all year long. It just puts a damper on their ability to kind of fight for that playoff spot, like you said.
For our next game, the Chiefs-Raiders, this was a great game to watch. I really enjoyed it. The Raiders right now, to me, even despite this loss, the Raiders right now, to me, are one of the most surprising, one of actually the top teams in the NFL. They competed with the Chiefs. They beat the Chiefs earlier in the year, and I think we both kind of expected the Chiefs to beat the Raiders by a little bit more than they did. But like the Chiefs got the win. Offensively, the Chiefs got going again. Anytime you get Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill involved as much as they did, they're not going to lose many games. But for the Raiders, Nelson Aguilar, despite a few drops, has been really playing well for them down the field. And it really, I think, has helped their success. And Darren Waller, once again, played well. We didn't see too much out of their run game. Josh Jacobs ran for about 55 yards, I think. But the Chiefs got a pretty good D-line. And like I said, I'm very surprised by the Raiders coming here. It was a home game, but they battled with the Chiefs and were really a few plays off of winning this game. And the Chiefs, who are probably the best team in football right now. But like I said, it was a good win for the Chiefs. And like I just said, I think the Chiefs are the best team in football right now.
Yeah, man, I think the Raiders have been one of the biggest surprises of the season overall. I was arguing with some friends the other day, man, like just in terms of teams, I feel like the Raiders are one who is, quietly an extremely competitive team and one to watch in the playoffs. They have a pretty well-rounded offense right now. Nelson Aguilar is their vertical threat. Darren Waller is basically unstoppable when they're getting him the ball. And their run game is pretty reliable for the most part. Derek Carr's been playing well. He looks, way more comfortable this year than he was last year. And besides, they had a bad game against the Bucs and, one or two losses that they shouldn't have had. I think the Patriots was 1-2. The rest of their games, they've looked really well. Like you said, competed and beat the Chiefs last time and really were, one or two plays away from beating them this time around. So I feel like they're in a good position to compete. They got to close out some games late. But I agree, man. The Chiefs are the hottest team in the league right now, even though they have a loss, compared to the Steelers. I think the Steelers have been the most consistent team all year, but right now the Chiefs just look unstoppable. It looks like that offense can, score at any given moment, and their defense is doing enough, to keep them, which, it's not really hard when you have an offense that's that powerful.
Yeah, for sure. And I also think, the Raiders just – when they first got him in his first year, I wasn't too big on John Gruden. But this year he's really impressed me. He's got the guys ready to go. And their coordinators, like I was watching some of the plays they were running on offense, and it was just insane. The Chiefs have always been that team that draws up special plays for big-time games and figures them out. And like they even did it Sunday night. They had a few plays where like a tight end, I think, passed to the fullback. It was a bunch of weird plays they ran. But I saw the Raiders kind of doing that and having success with it. And I think a lot of NFL teams should kind of, if they watch that game, take some notes because, I've never been an NFL coach, nor am I as knowledgeable as those guys, but I would like the Ravens especially to take notes. Watching them get everybody involved and work around just really impressed me. Like I said, the Raiders have played great, but I really have been impressed by their play calling. So for the last game of the week, the Rams Bucks, this really pushed you ahead of me in the picks. You took the Rams, I took the Bucks. I didn't think there was any chance the Rams beat the Bucks, and I keep watching the game, and I'm like, they're really about to lose the game, and they ended up losing. But Tom Brady had a bad night. He's been good, pretty good all year, but that night he struggled. The Rams defense played so good, which is all the guys they got. After watching that game, I really saw the Rams defense step up and show what it's supposed to. But Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp had great games. I think Cooper Kupp is another top underrated wide receiver in the NFL. There's a lot of good wide receiver duos in the NFL. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. In this division, actually, there's a lot of good wide receiver duos. But Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods have shown they should be up there and they should be getting some praise because they played so well. But I think for the Bucs, it definitely hurt not getting their run game going. The weeks we see the run game going, we see them win. They didn't get it going. They still could have won the game, but they just had some costly mistakes. And, it was a huge win for the Rams. And that division is so, so good right now. And we're probably going to see 3 teams out of that division make the playoffs.
Yeah, man, I think, in terms of just overall division strength top to bottom, the 49ers have had, more injuries than anyone could fathom this year. But if it wasn't for that, those would be, without a doubt, 4 contending teams in one division. I think the Rams have picked it up as the season's gone on, and they look really good right now. They've got some young guys stepping up in the secondary along with Jalen Ramsey, really just dominating one side of the field. He's playing as good as he's really ever played right now. And the offense looks solid too. Even, they've kind of figured out a running game, getting really all the running backs involved. And you mentioned the wide receivers; they're playing as good as anybody, on a week-to-week basis. And they kind of did what they wanted to against the Bucs, man. I feel like the Bucs couldn't stop them, and they really didn't have anything on offense either. It's just been up and down week to week for Tampa as far as offense goes. You'll get a couple weeks in a row where they'll play really good and Brady looks in sync, and then you get a night like the other night where they just can't really do anything, especially down the field. When they really lack that and the run game, you can't really do a whole lot. And then obviously the interception at the end is just uncharacteristic of Tom Brady. You expect to at least, give the team a chance, and it was just a really errant throw there at the end, throwing 2 picks to a rookie in his very first NFL start. That's not something you expect of any NFL starting quarterback, especially not the GOAT.
So now as we get into our picks, you're now winning 26-23. Coming into this week, you were only up 1, but my biasness killed me with the Ravens game. You took the Titans, I took the Ravens. That was my loss. We both took the Seahawks, who won. We both took the Packers, who lost. We both took the Chiefs, who won. And then on Monday night, I took the Bucs and you took the Rams. So as I said, you're now up 26-23. Heading into next week, I put this game on here because there's a chance they still play it. The Steelers-Ravens game, and it's one of the better games this week. I found some promise picking some games, but I'm going to go with the Steelers. I got some bets going with some friends about the Ravens winning, but that's just because I'm been a Ravens fan. Coming to this, I can't seriously take the Ravens, especially COVID just completely throws any chances of me taking the Ravens off. They got both their starting centers out, or their starting center and their backup center out of the game. Their defensive line still banged up, dealing with some COVID and some actual injuries. So I got to take the Steelers. Like we've said, the Steelers are 10-0, and they're executing and winning games. So if this game's played on Sunday, I definitely think the Steelers will win it.
Yeah, man, right now, the way, the Ravens are playing, I just don't see anywhere that they can really compete. I think this will kind of just be a signal of kind of the end of this year for the Ravens overall. They can still push for, a late playoff spot. But that also depends on, how they play against the Browns, who are, playing a lot better, than it really looks like the Ravens are playing right now. So I'll take the Steelers, probably pretty easily, to be honest, which is tough to have, thought that would happen at the beginning of the year.
So now for the Chiefs Bucks, I think the only way that I really catch up is when I start taking upsets. I'm going to take the Bucks. I took the Bucks last week. I was wrong, and I probably will be wrong again. But Tom Brady usually bounces back off of struggles. And the weapons, the only team that I think can match the Chiefs with weapons on offense is the Bucks. The Bucks got so many weapons on that offensive side. They're going to have to get the run game going if they want to win this game. Ronald Jones got to get the ball. Ronald Jones hopefully can limit some fumbles. And I think the Bucks defense, it's been inconsistent, but I think the Bucks defense could do a pretty good job of stopping that Chiefs offense. So I'm going to go with the Bucks.
Yeah, man, I'm going to take the Chiefs, mainly because I feel like, although the Bucks secondaries played pretty well at times during the year, they're extremely young. And I think, between, Andy Reid, the offensive coordinator, and then, the offense, I think they'll take advantage of that, exploit some mismatches there and be able to do what they want in the passing game, which will be too much for the Bucks to overcome. The Bucks running game has been so up and down, and so has Tom Brady, that the Chiefs defense isn't the best, and they definitely didn't look the best last week, but I just don't see them being able to do enough right now.
So now for the Titans-Colts game, this game I was literally 50-50 about. I have no idea who I really think will win this game. I'm going to go with the Titans just because the Colts beat them last time, and I think the Titans are going to be looking for some revenge. But like I said, either team could win this game, and I think this is going to be the game of the week. Both of these teams are playing such good football right now, and they're both coming off pretty big wins. So I'm going to go with the Titans.
Yeah, man, I agree. It could go either way. Last game, the Colts kind of pulled away, winning by 17. I think this will be a closer one than that, just because second time around, teams have familiarity and both teams have some momentum. But I'm going to go with the Colts. I think, the way they're playing defensively right now, they just look good, and it looks like they've got a lot of confidence as a team. They're playing with a lot of energy, and I think they'll be able to do enough to slow down Derrick Henry just to be able to win.
So looking at these last two games, I'm guessing we're both the same. So we have two differences this week. Hopefully I can try to catch back up a little bit. But for the next game, the 49ers-Rams, I have to go with the Rams. For a healthy 49ers team, I'd probably go with the 49ers, but just too many injuries are killing them. And the Rams, like we've said, are really starting to come on and play good football. So I'm going to go with the Rams.
Yeah, man. At this point in this year, I just don't see the 49ers being able to do anything with them. They just don't have anybody really to play with. So that's an easy one.
And then the last game, another easy one because we both shared how we felt about the Bears all year. The Bears-Packers coming off of a loss, I don't think there's any way Aaron Rodgers comes out and plays bad at all against the Bears. Like we said before, I mean, even now, Aaron Rodgers has still been playing like the best quarterback this year in football, or one of. So I think Aaron Rodgers won't have any issues. Even though the Bears' defense is pretty good, I don't think he'll have any issues, and I think the Packers will get the win.
Yeah, I agree. I think, the Bears as a team just aren't really it right now. But I think their defense is solid, but I still don't see them stopping Aaron Rodgers in that offense. He'll find a way to get it done. And the Bears, I don't have any confidence in the Bears offense being able to move the ball, against anyone. And especially not getting the ball going in the passing game with, they got the Smith brothers in Green Bay and a pretty solid secondary. I just don't see them being able to do anything against that.
So now for our college football picks, Illinois proved me wrong last week. I took Nebraska and I was horribly wrong, and you were right. Illinois played great last week, and they're really starting to impress me. But coming into this Ohio State game, there is no possible way I can take Illinois. As much as I want to, just because they proved me wrong, I just can't. So I'm gonna have to go with Ohio State. Indiana truly was one or two plays away from beating Ohio State or forcing overtime, but I just don't think Illinois is going to have what it takes to beat Ohio State at this point in the year.
Yeah, man. It was great to see Illinois pull that out. I think, they relied on what they were good at, and, they've always been opportunistic, even, when I was there, defensively taking advantage of mistakes, and that's what they did. Nebraska, just as a program right now, is not in the greatest of positions. And Illinois took advantage of all those, mistakes. And like I said, I said last week, the games in Lincoln are always really competitive and fun, and that proved to be the case. But, man, it's Ohio State. Illinois relies on the run game offensively, and I don't see them moving the ball against O-State. Indiana had -1 rushing yards, and Indiana has a really strong running back and one of the best just offenses, period. I don't think they'll hold them to -1 yards, but I just don't see them doing enough at all. And the defense, it's going to be tough to stop Justin Fields, man. He's hard to contain. He made some crazy mistakes that no one really expected last week, but Indiana's defense has been playing well all year. So Illinois won't be able to do those same kind of things this week.
So now in the Maryland-Indiana game, as you just said, Indiana's defense is so good. Watching that game, Justin Fields, who – it's top 2 quarterback in college football, if not number 1. Just Indiana had so many times where they had him sacked. They had him. They were about to bring him down. He gets out of it. And a couple times, he made a play out of it, and there were a couple times where he forced a throw and threw an interception. Indiana's defense just impressed me so much. And Talia from Maryland has dealt with a lot of pressure this year and has made it work. But I just don't see him doing as much against Indiana's defense. I think Maryland's offense will come to play and will be ready to play, but it's all going to depend on the defense on Saturday. And I really think it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to go with Indiana. Like I said, this is our first week where I think we're definitely going to get a game. The Ohio State game, we didn't get one. The Michigan State game, we didn't get one. And now we're definitely going to get one this weekend from reports. But I'm going to go with Indiana. I'm going to go with our streak. Every time we've taken a different team to beat Maryland, Maryland has won. So I'm going to go with Indiana.
Yeah, man, I think, just talking about that Indiana-Ohio State game, man, I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot early and were able to come all the way back and gave themselves a chance. If they had any running game, that's a completely different game and in their favor. And they also, like you said, didn't take advantage of all the times they got pressure on Fields, let him out a lot. Probably could have had like 7 or 8 sacks. And they still ended up having a bunch and put a bunch of pressure on him. I think they'll be able to do the same against us. And hopefully Talia can take advantage maybe of some one-on-one matchups on the outside because like Indiana, we've got some, great one-on-one receivers who can make plays down the field in the vertical passing game. So I think it'll be good to watch that battle. I think it'll be a back-and-forth game. It should be a lot better than last year. I'm going to go with Maryland, man. I feel like, we have the opportunity to take advantage. If Indiana's run game is sloppy, I think their pass game will be dominant. But, if we can, force them one or two bad throws, take advantage of a pick and slow down the running game, I think there's a chance. And I think it'll be an offensive battle on both sides.
Yeah, if I'm wrong this week, I will be exceptionally happy. If you win that pick this week, I'll be beyond happy.
No
But
doubt.
on Tuesday, we saw the college football playoff. Their rankings right now, which really mean absolutely nothing because we still have a few conference championships, even a few good matchups. But in order, the top six: Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, Ohio State, Texas A&M, and Florida. There was a lot of I'm in between. I don't really know how I feel about they said BYU is at 14. I saw a lot of people. I guess BYU's played better than 14, but at the end of the day, every year BYU really doesn't play anybody. They play great. Their quarterback Zach Wilson's been good, but I just don't know. I think they should be higher than 14. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't think that they should be in the top 6 right now. They're behind Iowa State, who they should be ahead of. They're behind Oklahoma, who I think they should definitely be ahead of. I'm not high on Oklahoma, and they're behind Georgia. But I think if you take any three of those teams and they play against BYU, I actually think it's a good game. But Bama is number 1, no surprise. Notre Dame is number 2, which is no surprise. They're going to play Clemson. I heard that they're going to play Clemson as long as each team wins out. They're going to play Clemson in the ACC championship, which I didn't know that they would be playing in that this year. And then there's Clemson at 3, Ohio State at 4. So I think we could see all 4 of these teams stay in. Texas A&M rose to 5, and last week you talked about how good they've been, which is a bit surprising. Texas A&M is usually pretty good. All SEC teams are usually pretty good, but Texas A&M has played exceptionally well. And then number 6 is Florida with Kyle Trask, who's been one of the Heisman favorites. So of the rankings, I think Georgia, Iowa State, and Oklahoma are ranked a little too high, but I don't know if BYU should be in the playoff just yet.
Yeah, man, I think it's tough to put BYU in the playoff just because they're independent and they play, their own schedule. And they've been dominant, but, they're playing a lot of Mountain West teams. They beat up on Navy to start the year. There's just not a lot of really credible games for them. And, even they play Utah, but Utah's in the Pac-12, who's also not looked at in the best of light just in terms of the other Power Fives. So it's tough for them. I think they're a really strong team. And, if they go undefeated, ultimately, I think they definitely deserve a New Year's Six Bowl, which they'll get, no doubt. But just in terms of a playoff spot, I just can't see them beating any of those other teams. They definitely should be ahead of Oklahoma. I'm no fan of Oklahoma. They, have played poorly all year. And they beat Oklahoma State, but realistically, Oklahoma State and no one in the Big 12 has been that impressive, if we're, just being honest with ourselves. Other than that, man, Florida and Texas A&M are 2 big ones just because Florida's been strong all year long. They played the second half of the Texas A&M game really poorly, which is why they find themselves, if they win that game, they're probably at number 4, in my opinion. And they'll still have a chance as long as they go undefeated. They'll have a chance to match up with Bama. And if they win, we could see Bama in the playoff at number 4 and them in maybe 3 or something like that. Obviously, Clemson, Notre Dame. I think that game will, if they play again, will kick one of them out. Especially if it's Clemson with 2 losses. You can't put someone in with 2 losses right now, especially with the shortened season and everything. So there's a lot of definitely big games left to play. The conference championships will be some big ones. I don't see anyone really beating Bama. Florida maybe has a chance because of the power of their offense with everyone there. I know they've had some injuries and stuff, but they had a close game with Vanderbilt the other day. And no offense to Vandy, but that just can't happen right now. But we'll see, man. Like I said, there's some big games left to play, and there's going to be a lot to watch.
Yeah, and like you said about Clemson, Notre Dame, I think some fans will be upset if Notre Dame loses that game and they get pushed out, but I think all non-Notre Dame fans know if Notre Dame loses that game, they don't belong in. And as for Oklahoma, they kind of treated that Oklahoma State game like the Super Bowl. I saw so many of them so happy on Twitter talking about how good they've been, but they lost to Iowa State. They just really haven't been that good. But this weekend, we should see some really good games. Notre Dame plays UNC on Friday, I think. And if I'm not saying North Carolina is going to win the game, North Carolina has been up and down this year, but I think we could see a good game there. I've been wrong with Notre Dame and some of their wins, but I still to this day, I'm not high on Notre Dame. Never have been. So if UNC wins, I think Notre Dame has completely taken themselves out, except beating Clemson in the ACC championship, which I think there's zero chance happens. But Iowa State plays Texas, which will be probably 100 to a 99 scoring game. Auburn plays Alabama, which always exciting. So I think this weekend in college football we'll have some very exciting games. And, we'll see some teams maybe get bounced, and some teams might stick around.
For sure, man. It'll be interesting to see. Stuff tends to naturally play itself out, and the top four, for the most part, stick out. And especially in a year like this with so many limited games, I think it'll be pretty clear by the end.
So that's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and look out for another episode next week. And we also are definitely going to be having some guests come on very soon.
Yes, sir.